Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us for the fifth episode of our podcast series, Snack and Otome. I am Natalie. I'm the director of Nochi Studios. And today we are so excited because we have Gina with us, and she is the voice actress of Zero. And just to go through some really quick things. So, we are super excited to share that we will be launching Sweetcore Brews next week. A little bit of news about that. We say that we're going to launch on the 12th, but we'll probably go a little bit into it during the podcast chat. But a little bit more about Gina. So she is super multi-talented and like a lovely person. She is an expert leadership level user researcher who has driven the research strategy and implementation for 20 plus AAA titles and indie titles. She's also a digital illustrator, comic artist, and brand asset creator. And I think we'll get to see a little bit of it during the podcast. And she is also the host and creator of the channel Short One Gaming. And then, of course, she is an experienced voice actress with a deep love for bringing vibrant characters to life, including our beloved Zero, as you can see in the background. And again, Zero is from Sweetcore Brews, our upcoming game. So really quickly for the audience, feel free to drop in questions anytime during the chat. We'll try to get to it as fast as we can. If not, we will also answer it offline on our Discord or on the YouTube comments. But in the meantime, we'll just get right into it. So Gina, for our fans to get to know you better, can you tell us a little bit more about yourself and your background?
Sure, of course. I'm overwhelmed by the kindness of that intro. Thank you so much. Hi everyone. I'm Gina Leigh Smith. And first and foremost for this project, I am a voiceover artist. But as Natalie mentioned, I also have worked in the video games industry for a while now, almost a decade. And I've worked in the role as the director of user research at 2K Games, where we worked to help publish a lot of different titles, including things like 2K Lego Drive, Borderlands 3, Tiny Tina's Wonderlands, Civilization 6, XCOM, War of the Chosen, so on and so forth. Which I loved because I've gotten to work on a lot of different games in a huge variety of genres with lots of different audiences. And from a research standpoint, that's super exciting because no player is the same. Every player has their own wants and needs and beliefs and expectations of games. And our job was to basically make sure that the game that developers were making was the game that players were playing. It's not necessarily about changing a game, but it's about making sure that the developer's intent, what they want the player to feel and to see and to experience, is what that player is actually feeling, seeing, and experiencing. And there aren't like accidental barriers to that experience built into the game. So gotten to work on a lot of games in that sense. I've been doing voiceover for about 3 years now, although I've been acting a whole life. Everything from like community theater to what have you. And I love art, which is the third one. Went to art school, and I love working on character illustrations, sometimes things like book covers, stuff like that. So yeah, I dabble in a lot of stuff, but I just love working with creative people to make amazing things. So this has been a real pleasure.
So one of my questions that I had like been thinking about before the podcast is how do you balance all the projects that you do? Like there's so much facets to it, and it's amazing that you have like the analytical side with the user research, and I'd love to talk a little bit more about that because that's a personal passion of
Yeah,
mine.
absolutely.
But then also you have like the creative, like from drawing and illustrating, and then also voice acting.
Great question, and I'll get back to you when I have an answer to it. I do feel like, time is always precious, and sometimes you have 20 things you want to do and you kind of have to pick 3 or, something like that and prioritize. But for me, I love the analytical side. I like process. I like really understanding a project or a process or a thing. I love research in all of its forms, and I like really I like being curious. I like understanding how things work. And then also I like making things. And so long as I'm like scratching both of those itches, I guess, I'm happy. So a lot of it comes down to juggling time. I might be working on an illustration project for a little while. I might be working on, for our streaming channel, I might focus on video production for a little while. But there are constants, and voiceover is one of those constants. It's something that it's something that I like to set aside a certain chunk of time during the week and say, this is I care enough about this to be consistent and to get to explore new characters and new worlds. And so yeah, I sometimes it's shuffling puzzle pieces and blocks, but sometimes it's just saying, I'm showing up for this, and this is something I care about.
Yeah, totally.
Mhm.
I think that like really resonates probably with our team because like being entrepreneurial and startup-y with like our studio, and there's only three of us that are doing this full
Mhm.
time. There's like a balance of we get to dabble in a little bit of everything. And like that's sort of like I resonate with what you saying, like, doing things like video creating and all this other stuff. But then like we have our core roles on the team. Like
Mhm.
Alexandra, for example, like she will always like number one priority is script writing, and then Kira, number one priority is dub, right? And but then at the same time, we'll dabble in other things. Like sometimes
Mhm.
some of the graphics that you guys see on for our fans, like you'll see some of the graphics. Sometimes it's made by me or Alexandra or whoever is like feeling wanting to stretch that creativity brain. So that's awesome. So, oh, we have a question in. So Gina, what do you think of to get into character for Zero?
Oh, great question. So I immediately, and actually I this may be sidetracking a little bit, but it's something I definitely wanted to share on this stream. I promise this is going to cycle into your question, which is I don't know if I've ever been as immediately drawn to a character as I was to Zero. I remember seeing the audition for this role and the VAC casting Discord, which is where you can go if you want to find a whole bunch of casting calls that are open to the public. And I remember opening this one up, seeing Zero's design, and being like, "Oh my goodness gracious, this is
No.
like the most attractive person I've ever seen. I want to be them." And I sent this audition to a bunch of my voice actor friends, and just being like, "Check this person out! Can you believe?" So what I think is immediately obvious about Zero is that she has a level of confidence, a level of humor, like a deep amusement and delight, and really anything she wants to have like delight and find humor in. But also that there's more going on under the surface. I love a charismatic character that also has hidden depths. So that really helps. I think going into the booth with a grin and a smile and being able to really envision the care that Zero has for the people around her. Yeah, that's sort of the touch point, I think, for Zero's humor, but also that sort of overpowering charisma.
Yeah, I have to say, like, your audition blew us away because, like, you were able to get that depth in your audition, which, like, to us is amazing because, like, for everyone, we didn't include that much detail because, like, it was pretty early in the process. It was before the Kickstarter, right? So, like, we were still developing the game. Like, yeah, we had a concept and everything, and, like, we had laid groundwork about personality and stuff, but it wasn't like you got to play the game or anything. Like, you didn't get to play through episodes and episodes of content. So, like, we just absolutely were wowed by, like you said, the grin, like going into the booth, like you can hear that in the voice lines. And if people are interested, we could play a voice line if you're not shy about that, Gina.
I'm not shy at all. Absolutely.
Okay, I think we should do it because like this is one of my favorites. I think you can again hear that happiness, that excitement, that she's just so charismatic again. Um, but let me see if I can time this with the video actually in the background. Okay, so we'll play it in three, two, one.
Is my princess getting tired already? Well then, just lie back and let me do all the work, okay?
Like it's so nuanced. So yeah, we were so excited to show it off. And what's I think your voice really so we have an AR feature, for those who don't know. And what you get to do in the game is we have these cards. I actually have them somewhere. I might go off camera later to grab them. But then you scan the card and Zero, you'll see this animation of Zero pop into life in your real space. And so I hope people are really excited to be able to hear your voice and like you were cheering them on, right? With the awesome voiceover that you did. So yeah.
Well, thank you. And I do think that feature is really exciting, and it's something that I've never seen before. So I think that's like it's a new offering, and it also helps bring these characters even more to life, which I think is very cool.
Awesome. Yeah, we're gonna have to send you some of the AR cards now to think about it. I don't think we've done that yet.
Yes.
So we're gonna have to mail those in so you can check out Zero in, I guess, in reality. Well, awesome. So, oh, and the comments are coming in. There's a lot of hearts, by the way, if you haven't seen them. A lot of people are loving it. So one question also I think that people might be interested to hear is, do you have any tips for audience members who are interested in going into voice acting? Like you mentioned VAC, which is like where we went to find awesome voice actors, but anything for people who are wanting to dive in?
Absolutely. So I'd say voice acting can be broken up into a couple of smaller pieces, and the first is the auditions are out there, and the best way to start is by starting and trying to see what is available, what auditions you can find. Auditions are all over social media, mostly Twitter/X, but also on Discord, also on Reddit, also on a couple of different platforms. So the first place to start might be to see what type of auditions are out there, what type of roles are people looking for. The second is you need to have a passion for acting and ideally some training, but that can be assembled in a lot of different forms. There's tons of free acting workouts that are online, as well as a lot of different classes that narrow in on really, it can be really specific things like video game efforts, but it also can be much broader things about like the foundations of acting, how to connect with a character, and how to really embody a scene and a life. And the final piece is perseverance. The one warning I give about voice acting as a hobby, as a career, as whatever it might be, is there's a lot of rejection in it because a video game, for instance, might be casting 5 characters and they might receive 2,000 auditions, and not getting a role in that instance has nothing to do with you. It doesn't have anything to do with your performance or your equipment or anything like that. It really just comes down to are you a fit for the part? And sometimes you will be an immediate fit for the part, and it will be like it'll be this beautiful synergy. And sometimes even if you give the performance of your life, you're just not quite what they were looking for and what they were expecting the character to sound like. But through perseverance, you eventually get roles, you make amazing connections. It's such a joy getting to work with the people who make amazing creative projects and helping them bring their characters to life. So it's a wonderfully fulfilling like creative avenue. But I do recommend looking into acting classes, looking on social media to where auditions are, and doing some research about what people are looking for, and also having that perseverance going in. Also, there's tons of like guides for if you're worried about, oh, is my equipment good enough or things like that. There's tons of free guides online about what you need in order to reach a level of professional quality, and the bar is not as high as you might fear. Yeah, I think doing a little bit of research and having that love for the art is most of what you need.
Awesome. So on the other side, as you mentioned, research, love to talk a little bit about the work that you do as the director of user research experience. So one thing that I really loved the way you explained was like developers are creating games and they have a vision, right? But like we have something in mind, but because we're in it day to day, like it doesn't always translate. So with that being said, I'd love to hear more about this in terms of, one, I know you guys have an awesome channel. And we can throw the splash art for that for a little bit. And does that impact how you guys choose your games at all? Because like, for us, like we play games for research, just like for just because we don't want to know what's out there, right? And just to understand like sentiment of like what's popular, what people are interested in, always like looking at the comments and stuff like that. But at the same time, like for me personally, like when I play games, I have to turn off my work brain to make sure I'm not like analyzing it, right?
Yeah.
And like thinking about customer sentiment. So yeah, how do you guys choose your games for your channels? And like how does that work in with you also being
Mhm.
like, a user researcher from your professional life too?
Absolutely. So great question. And I definitely feel that need to sort of turn my brain off a little bit, or at least that part of my brain off when I'm engaging with things outside of my formal work environment. Um, I will say, so in my role as a user researcher, I've primarily worked on AAA and AA games. I have worked on a few indie games, but the vast majority of the games that I'm working on are AAA titles. Um, but the real truth of the matter is my passion for games lies in indie titles, and I think there's so much more wonderful cutting edge like incredible work that's going on in the indie space, and while for work I might play games that are more in line with the games that we're researching so that I understand what's out there. I understand that when we're doing a study and a participant says, "Oh, you know what this reminds me of? This reminds me of this one feature in this one game." It really helps if I know what game they're talking about and that feature so that I can ask pertinent follow-up questions. So I do play on my own a lot of games that are related to the work I do. But for our YouTube channel, Short One Gaming, the vast majority of the games we play are indie titles, because they rejuvenate for me my love of games. They remind me of what's so special about interactive media, and it just it gets me pumped not only on to love more games, but also going back into work with new ideas and with new perspectives. So typically there's not a ton of crossover when it comes to the types of games, but they definitely do inspire each other.
That's awesome. What are you seeing is the trend in indie games right now from like what you're playing and yeah, what you're exploring?
Oh gosh, great question. um the challenge with that question is it's highly biased by the games I am picking to play, and so if there's any trend I'm spotting, it's a little bit of selection bias based entirely on the things that appeal to me. So some of the games I played fairly recently are like the game Chants of Sinar. And I also not that long ago replayed Tunic with my brother, who's one of the co-hosts on the channel. And what's really interesting about those games, especially as a researcher, is that they furiously eschew traditional onboarding, because both of them are or like they are games with language, but not language you're meant to read necessarily. They're language you're meant to uncover like a puzzle. And because of that, they don't have typical tutorial areas or onboarding or like pop-up reminders to say, hey, you're stuck and here's why. But because of that, they have to be so clever and so thoughtful and have to understand what onboarding is at its core so thoroughly so that the player isn't missing those aids that typically are present. So what I'm seeing is a lot of deconstruction and reconstruction of what onboarding means, of what tutorials mean, and in some cases that really works. In some cases I think it's hard because different players have different experiences with games. They come with different knowledge. Some can make leaps that others simply can't. And so I think it's an ongoing process, because I do think there are definitely walls that are hard for newer players to get over, but that doesn't mean the games are really, really cool. I'm
Yeah.
really enjoying Chants of Sinar.
That's awesome. Oh my gosh, I'm like geeking out at everything you're saying because like that totally speaks to, how Nochi operates and everything. Like we are
Mhm.
trying to create different games. Like our motto is like making romance games that people haven't played before. But also because of that, we typically do get bad reviews as well because like people are like, what is this? Like I don't understand. And for us, we do the same thing where we don't always have a traditional tutorial for stuff. Like
Mhm.
even in Sweetcore, we don't have a tutorial. In Untold Atlas, we don't have a tutorial. But we did try to do a lot of user testing of like, okay, here's our target market. Again, selection bias. We have to be careful about who we're selecting to play test to make sure that like we're covering who we're aiming for. Because there's a core customer that we want to like please because we know
Mhm.
we want to make people happy about romance games and it's about the content. But yeah, that like I'm like geeking out because everything you said is like what we try to do, at least for user research, we are a little bit challenged in terms of funding because like we can't have like thousands of players, you know, like Genshin Impact gets like, you know, a whole wait list if you try to beta test for them.
100%.
But
And
yeah.
I will say that is one thing about my field that I know a lot of people are really working on finding ways around, but traditionally it's fairly expensive. Or it's either very expensive or very laborious. So I know I'm hoping that in the future, as we develop more ways for people to play games early and provide feedback, that it becomes more accessible and broader audiences become more accessible, because it's great and very helpful hearing from players before a game comes out.
Totally. And
Mhm.
again, but that selection bias is important. I think I was reading the other day, there's some very interesting, like, not academic, but like analytical articles, right, about how Genshin. I'm a huge Genshin fan, so I'm probably gonna
Mhm.
bring it up a lot. But how
Me too.
Hoyoverse,
I've had to put it down, but I
oh,
do love it
it's
deeply.
addicting. Yeah, it's addicting. Dailies. I mean, that whole system was meant to be addictive, right? Like that's why they're
Mhm.
doing it that way. But yeah, it's interesting because like their beta process is like there is selection bias there. They pick from their fans, and so there's going to be sometimes problems with when it releases. So yeah, keep players, please keep that in mind that we do our
Mhm.
best. But you know, sometimes, as you mentioned, there's a lot of cost and time associated with it. So
Absolutely.
let's see. Oh, a lot of people are commenting. Eye opening. Awesome. So my other question is, um, what are you looking forward to in the industry, specifically for games, where you think it's going on a whole? And then also for voice acting.
Absolutely. Ooh, the first one's a big question. I feel like uh smaller games with people paid better is my genuine answer there. It's just games are it's a hard industry on every single level. It doesn't matter whether you're a solo developer, whether you're part of a massive publisher. It's a very difficult industry, and it's one that hasn't always taken care of its people, and that it's hard to stay in long term. And I hope that more people stay in the industry longer, that we are able to produce more small games that have these, you know, immeasurably impactful experiences. And I think, like I said, I think that's why I'm drawn to the indie space, because there are those small gems there that are life changing, but you know, didn't require a 600-person team for 7 years. So,
Right, right.
you know, but a little bit conversely, I really do love the cinematic and grounded acting that has been going on in the AAA space. I think with the advancements of performance capture, some of the performances people are giving are heartbreaking and beautiful, and sometimes even just the extras that have been performance captured are have magic to them, because there's this genuine spark of life and of delight in the small moments that were captured. And I do know people that have worked in motion capture and performance capture, not only on the acting side, but on the capture side and the animation side and the processing, and it's such a cool
It's so
field.
good
Oh my
now.
gosh.
Yeah.
So I'm very excited about that. I'm so excited that the technology has gotten to a point where it can kind of get out of the way of the performance and let the performance shine, and then come back in and make it really good. So that's very, very exciting. Yeah, I think those are my two answers. I'm hoping for a more sustainable future, and also love people being able to really act their hearts out.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's amazing. Like the past, I mean, even the past 5 years, the industry has changed so much because,
Mhm.
like, if you think about 10 years ago, like back in the early 2000s, even the 90s, or even like 2010s, right? It's like Steam has blown up, which has really helped the indie crowd. Because
Mhm.
prior, in order to get published, you have to be with a bigger studio or you had to find a
Absolutely.
publisher. But now a lot of indie people, and for us, for example, like we are able to crowdfund. We're able to crowdfund to be able to source our game or to fund our games. With remote work, there's been so much better technologies, right?
Mhm.
And so you can have talented voice actors wherever. Like Actually, we were just talking about this. Gina and I had not met before. We've always been communicating through email, and now here we are. But yet we were able to find you through the power of the internet and like how all these technologies and Zoom and all that stuff, you're able to get stuff done. Yeah, I think it's a really exciting time, and I think there definitely
Agreed.
is a trend. Like even publishers are noticing this now. More publishers are going for indie deals. I mean, thanks to the likes of like Stardew Valley and stuff like that,
Yeah.
right? So yeah, it is possible to be a one-person team, but like you said, it's not quite sustainable all the time. Like a lot of these indies um, do it as a passion project. Like they have a daytime job and then they try to find hours to do it, and then it can take years to get their game out finally on Steam and whatnot. So yes, please support indies, guys. Like
Please,
they work
please support
hard.
indies.
And if you want to see more games for your favorite creators, like even things like attending again like the podcast or like following people, so like follow Gina if you love her voice acting work, like that helps a lot to give feedback and give encouragement, even if it's not like a financial monetary thing. And even small things like sharing tweets, again retweeting, or I guess it's not tweets, it's still tweets, it's called X, but I think it's still tweets, right? But yeah, even stuff like that really helps the industry stay more sustainable, because you're helping these developers get on the algorithm, or like voice actresses get on the algorithm, so they don't have to necessarily go through an agent, or they don't necessarily have to go through a publisher, or it helps the agency or the publisher notice them because you're helping push their content up and their work up. So yeah, technology is exciting. There's bad stuff, like we don't like trolls and like all that stuff, but it's also
But it
super
does, it
helpful.
cracks the world open, and it allows you like
Yes.
so many different amazing connections and projects and serendipitous meetings to occur. So I completely agree. 100%.
Yeah. So we did get a new question in. The question is, what's the weirdest role you got to voice act for?
So, this is maybe not what you are asking, but it is what came to mind when the question came through, which is the weirdest project I got to voice in was a ballet, and it was a noise and spoken word ballet, and I got to play a series of characters in that, but it was all timed to where you had to sound like you weren't talking to a metronome. You had to sound completely natural, but have the coincidental cadence match up exactly to the movements of the dance.
That
And it
sounds so
was
hard.
it was a weird one. It was a little bit like ADR. It was a little bit like, it was just a really funky project. It was fun, to be clear. Delighted, not complaining at all. But that's probably when I think of weird projects, that's probably the first one that comes to mind.
That's awesome. Again, like the uniqueness, and like so many people have really cool ideas, and it's like would have never thought of that, but that sounds interesting. Now I like want to go check it out. That's awesome. So my next question is, so you talked a little bit about where the game industry needs to go, like sustainable and like let's uplift like indies and stuff like that. Where do you think the voice acting industry needs to go?
Absolutely. So I'll start by putting forward a bias, so that any answer I give, it is colored by that a little bit, and that is that I am, for the most part, a fully remote voice actor, which means that weird strip of wall behind me that's white and everything around it's green. Behind that is my voiceover booth, and I do the vast majority of all of my work in that booth in my home. I'm not located in one of the major voiceover meccas, which is like LA or Dallas, New York to a certain extent. So all of the work I get for the most part is remote work. And so my answer is going to be remote work. Which that's why I wanted to lead in by saying, hey, I do have a bias here. But I think during the pandemic, obviously there was a huge pivot from fully in studio to fully remote work for VO. And the performances people were able to give, because new voice actors who had never gotten a shot at it before suddenly had their moment. And some of the, I mean, especially in anime, some of the performances captured during that time are incredible. They're completely next level, and a lot of that's because they were able to do a lot more authentic casting. They were able to do a lot more accessible casting for actors who might have disabilities that prevent them from going into booths, or frankly people who just can't afford to live in LA and Dallas. And I miss that. There's been a bit of a swing back towards in studio, and to be clear, the people who are going in studio are amazing actors. This is not me trying to downplay that, but I do miss that massive burst of new talent and new voices to be heard. So I'm hoping that there can be a balance reached over time between the ability to do remote voiceover, because we've now proven you can, and allowing people who, again, can't for whatever reason or don't want to be in those voice acting meccas to have the same access to work. I think it just makes performance better to have more options. So that's sort of the direction I'd say. Yeah, I think that's my answer.
Yeah, no, that's legitimate. I mean, there is so like for our team, we work hybrid, most of the time remote, but like we do meet in person because there's those times of periods it's like we gotta hash things out and it's just easier to see face to face so we can understand vibes and stuff.
Oh yeah.
But that's like more critical, right? Versus like for voice acting work, it's not like you guys are working every day. It's a little bit of a gig economy, right?
Very much
so then it's like because of that, it's very difficult to be in person all the time for that. Because one, it has to be consistent gigs if you want to make the move out to LA or whatnot.
Mhm.
But again, to your point, like there might be other challenges in everyone's personal life.
Completely agreed. Also, this is not me being against in-person work in general. And also, trust me, recording in studio is fun. I love recording in studio, but there are I do think that there are opportunities that are lost by only having that as an option.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, I'm like thinking about it. I feel like the only reason that you ought to go in is because maybe if there's like a voice director and they need to give you feedback, but even then that could be done remotely, like very successfully now if they were able to do it during the pandemic. It's not like it's changing collaboration workflow, but maybe, I don't know, maybe I'm wrong. I'm not that versed in the industry, so
there are like there can be challenges. People have different mics, people have different sound floors, people have different it's things that you can, if you just communicate ahead of time, you can neutralize. But I do know that exactly. I do know there are I don't want to minimize the reasons for that shift back to studio, but they did find ways around it in the past.
Yeah, that makes sense. We have another question from chat. Question is, what is your dream role?
I love playing funky little guys. I love playing critters or goblins or like little mad scientists or mascots. With full transparency, in one of our Let's Plays on Short One Gaming, I've been playing Monokuma from Danganronpa, not officially, just in a Let's Play, just to be clear. But oh my god, getting to run the full dang ladder with a maniacal, vicious mascot cartoon character is so much fun. So I love just being able to kind of crack yourself open and go for it and not know what sound is going to come out and be excited to discover it. So yeah, funky little guys, any sort of mascot or gremlin or like, weird minion of a boss character. And strangely, those are the ones that get me the most excited.
Yeah. Oh, that's fun. We also have another question. Did you build your voice booth?
I did, yes. And I bet if I got a sound engineer in there, and I've taken pictures and sent them to sound engineers, and they're like, it looks fine. But it's definitely it is my own construction. But what's amazing is like it took me a weekend to do it, and it's it's acoustic foam, acoustic panels, it's both for absorption and diffusion. The two different pieces are doing slightly different things to the sound in there. I have bass traps, and then I have the mic that I'm currently using, but it does sound better when it's actually in the booth. And yeah, for the most part, that kind of that gets you most of the way there. After that, there's a lot of comfort to consider. Do you want to be able to stand and sit? You might give different performances when you're standing, but you might not want to stand for 2-3 hours. There's also the consideration of if you want to do ADR, which is automatic dialogue replacement or dubbing. So if you want to dub things like anime or anything that's already got a vocal track that you're recording along to, you're going to want to be able to see the video and your sound capture and the script. So whatever configuration allows you to see all of those things, you're fine. A vertical monitor, I've heard, is a really good setup. I think I'm going to be pivoting to that soon. But it really doesn't require like a ton of custom unique equipment. It just requires you to really think about sound treatment. And sometimes sound treatment is like blankets. Like I've talked with a lot of sound engineers. Like you would not believe the number of professional projects I've recorded in a closet with some blankets. So like as I said earlier, the barrier to actually starting is pretty low. So long as you sort of you know what you're aiming for, and there's a lot of descriptions of that online.
And we have a fun question next. Does your quagsire have a name?
He does. His name is Paul. I did a Nuzlocke run also on Short One Gaming, and we had a quagsire named Paul who absolutely carried us through the whole game. So I've always been a fan of quagsires, but that catapulted quagsire right to the top of my favorite Pokemon.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing. I love it.
And this one is actually from Japan. I found him in Akihabara, got two, one for my co-host who did the run with me, and carried them for the next 2 weeks before I could bring them home. So
oh my gosh, that is dedication. That is dedication. And again, this is your YouTube channel, and you mentioned your mascot earlier, right? So it's super cute.
Yep. So and just for a brief intro of this, our YouTube channel is Short One Gaming. It's been running since 2015, and I run it with my brother, who's the one on the right. That's Jake, or I call him Short, because he's my brother and I can bully him like that. And the woman on the left is Allison, who is my best buddy. So we've been running this for years. And the penguin is named Ploppers. Mr. Ploppers.
Oh, cute. And you drew this, right?
Yes. I do all of the...
Amazing.
Well, not all. Allison is also an incredible artist, and massive shout out. I do a lot of the channel art just so that the style is consistent. Yeah.
Again, super multi-talented, like everything. It's amazing. I had a question, but now it left my mind. Maybe I'll remember it later. Oh yes, Short One Gaming. How did you guys come with that name? Is the short related to your nickname for your brother? Okay.
That is correct. So the backstory hardly matters at this point because siblings are siblings. When I was younger, when my brother was born, he's much younger than I am. I already had a friend named Jake, and then suddenly I had a brother named Jake, so I called Short the Short One. Short, and unfortunately, it stuck to the point where it feels like I'm accidentally calling him something derogative when I call him Jake, his actual name. So he's Short, and from now on, I'm gonna just call him Short. But my brother and I, after I moved to California and was suddenly, far away from him, we're like, we really want to have something that encourages us to keep in touch because we're really good friends, and we're now, sides of the country apart. What can we do to still hang out and to still have like projects to work on? Because we've always worked on projects together. And we loved Let's Play channels, and we're like, you know what if whatever, we'll record Undertale, a genocide run, and we'll have a great time, and we'll just put these up, and wouldn't that be fun? And whenever we're together, we'll record some episodes, and it'll be cute. And then we realized we just really loved it. There's something really special about not only being able to kind of like record these joyous moments that I'm sharing with my friends, but also then to be able to share that out with people and introduce folks to games they might not play otherwise, and just, give people something fun and relaxing to listen to. So originally it was just my brother and I, and then later on, not much later, like less than a year later, my best friend Allison joined as well. And the three of us have been running the channel for a good long long time, like I said, since 2015. So it's just it's something that I love. We mostly do YouTube as our bread and butter, but then we also have started streaming over the past couple of years. And it's just something I love. It's one of those, like, when I look at my life and it's like, what are the constants? What are the things that I care about that I want to keep doing? This is definitely part of it, because it is wonderful to get to create art with art of a sense with my like two people that matter to me that much. So it's really nice.
That's awesome. Yeah, no, I think it's awesome that like you're doing it with the people that you love and care about. And it just, I mean, it's content, but like you're doing it for yourself, which is amazing. Like it's not like for other people. You don't have like, yeah, you're not speaking to another order, right? That's awesome. I love that
100%.
story.
It's like if it was just the three of us hanging out, it would still be worth it. In answer to the question in chat, we are exactly the same height. So luckily he's never surpassed me, so I get to keep calling him that.
That's awesome. Amazing. So in interest of time, we are actually going to move to our next little segment, which is snack time. So with the channel name and everything, we do like snacks on the team, and we love eating snacks even when we're working remote. So our question is, what is your favorite snack, whether it's work snack or whenever you are wanting a snack?
Absolutely. Well, the moment I saw the
It's my princess.
You guys got to hear a little bit of Gina's voice again as Zero.
The moment I got this prompt, I didn't even have to think about it. I'm like, well, there's a correct answer to this. And the correct answer is these Ritz toasted sour cream and onion chips. There are guilty pleasures and there are not guilty pleasures. And this is not a guilty pleasure. This is objectively the best chip, and I love it dearly. But similar to Short One Gaming, one of the reasons I love it is because my whole family loves these chips. So anytime I'm visiting Atlanta, these are the primary ones that we have. And so I associate them with home, but also I associate them with a good time because they're good chips.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. I love the story. So for me, the snacks I've been recently eating is I've been trying to be on like a healthier kick because of the late night working schedule, which I guess I can talk a little bit about it. So for Sweetcore Brews, really quickly, we are aiming to launch it on the 12th. We did have pretty intense testing sessions with in-person players this past week, and there are still a lot of bugs, as some of you guys might know from our Discord channel. So we are trying our hardest to make sure that we launch on time to the 12th. We have been pulling a few late nights. Luckily, we have been getting sleep, but it might only be like 2 hours of sleep. So with that being said, we are aiming for the 12th. There is a chance that we might have to announce next week. We're working through the weekend, again, trying to make sure that launch happens. But if things don't get fixed and we have a little bit of, we have more playtesting sessions over the weekend too with in-person people. So long story short is we're going to try. We're working through the weekend. There is a slight chance on Monday that we might have to make an announcement if it gets delayed the next day, or even till Monday the 16th, I believe, is the next Monday. But we will keep everyone updated. If you're on our Discord, we'll let you know. If you're one of our Kickstarter backers, we'll also send a message about it. But it will be soon. It won't be like a month-long delay or anything, but there might be a slight delay. So with that being said, I've been trying to stay healthy so I don't get sick, because we did have 2 COVID cases on our team during development the past 3 weeks. So that was also a challenge. But I've been eating a lot of pistachios. So healthy nuts, guys. Good snack for giving energy and good protein. So yeah, that has been my snack recently. Our next question. So we do a few lightning round questions. What is your go-to lunch order?
Ooh. I do love a chicken sandwich. I think at my heart, I'm a chicken sandwich type of person.
Next question is, would you date any of your characters that you've voice acted for or voiced over for?
Probably not. But not for lack of loving them. I think personality match might not always be, you know. I don't know if I'm up to like that level of intensity for a lot of the characters. There is a character in a game that I'm working on. Her name is Susie, and this is a game called Belonging. And the trailer for that is out, but the game itself is not yet. But she's got a really nice like big sister energy to her, and I'm like, that maybe that energy I could match.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. On the flip side, would you yeet any of your characters? And if yes, why?
No.
Oh, oh.
Great question. Maybe not yeet. That's pretty strong and potentially a thing you can't take back. But there's definitely characters that I would side eye. Like get it together.
Yeah, yeah, for sure, for sure. I mean, they're lovable still, right? It's just like
Mhm.
in real
Oh,
life, you
absolutely. It's
know.
one of those where it's like I deep affection, but also like
Yeah. We have characters like that for our games. Like we actually make Discord emojis out of them and like we use them as a joke, like you're being like them. It's like in real life we probably would not like them. But because they're in our games, they're fun and we can just make fun of them for now, but we might want to eat them if they were real. So yeah.
No, absolutely. And I will say, like, there's something wonderful about like fictional characters that do kind of get under your skin because like it allows you to have feel emotions for them that you might not feel for folks that you know every day. And I think that's what's really fun about fictional characters.
Totally. Um, next question is, or actually, yes, next question is, what are three things you can't live without at work? And it can be anything. It can be like food related, shoes, stress ball, whatever it is.
The first one is the chair I'm currently sitting in. I used to have a desk chair that really messed up my back, and I've realized that I'm behaving right now, but I typically sit like a pretzel. I have my knees above the desk and all of
Okay,
that. So
okay.
it is very important to me to have a chair that is ergonomically suited to my bad habits, I guess, so that I don't accidentally mess my back up. A blanket. I get cold very easily, and I can't focus when I'm cold. So I'm definitely a person that even in an office, I like having like a blanket at my desk to feel cozy. And is coffee a cliche? I feel like that, like
Nope.
it's one of those where it's true, but it
Hmm.
does feel a little cliche. But I love coffee and
Nope.
I like the ritual
Acceptable.
of making coffee. Yeah.
Yes, yes. It's like the smell, yeah, everything about it. Totally.
And it prompts you to take a break and get on your feet and
There
move
you
around.
go.
And I do think that that's important.
Again, healthy habits. And a cup of
Mhm.
coffee is good. Antioxidants, guys.
Mhm.
And Arya in the chat, Roman is the actual character that the emoji that we use for. So you're like totally on the ball for that. But we are very affectionate with him. We do love him. It's just that we use
Mhm.
him for that emoji. And last question is, what is your favorite game and why?
Oh, great question, and it shuffles a bit. I have like a top 5 and they just kind of move spots, but for the most part, like I feel very confident in that set. I'm a big fan of the Zero Escape series, which is 9 Persons, 9 Hours, 9 Doors, Virtue's Last Reward, and Zero Time Dilemma. I love puzzle games, but I also love narratives that can only be games. That matters a lot to me. There's always this impulse like, can you make it a movie? Can you make it and it's like, no, there's something very special about something that lives and breathes its format. So really really love those games. Also great vocal performances, and my camera is having a thing. Recently though, one of my favorite recent games is I Was a Teenage Exocolonist. um
Ooh.
Really good. I have mixed feelings about the name, but the game itself is really interesting. It's a I'm gonna call it a life sim loosely, but I'm also gonna call it a life sim roguelike.
Oh,
In,
interesting.
in
You're
that
doing very good marketing for it right
yeah,
now.
you're a character that is you land on an exoplanet at a very young age, at the age of 10, and the game takes place from the age of 10 years old to the age of 20 years old as you live life building a colony on this exoplanet. But if you happen to die, you reset to the beginning of that loop with all the memories retained from what you did the previous time. So every time you play through, you retain all of your knowledge, and there's a canonical reason for it. So it's a game that's replayable, and it lets you feel comfortable about experiencing different sides of it and exploring new things, because you know that you can take that knowledge and apply it elsewhere. Really, really good game. It's probably one of my standouts over the past couple of years.
Gosh, that sounds amazing. I'm gonna have to check that out later because I haven't
It's
played it.
good.
But like, I'm very intrigued by the features. I feel like it's very smart game design too, to like make people less frustrated with dying. But like, there's a reason for it, like you said, from a canonical standpoint. So that's fascinating.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. And we'll take the last question, I think, before we wrap up. Is someone asked, or Kokoro asked, hello, Kokoro, thank you for joining us again. But what is your favorite kind of coffee?
I mean, I love a pour over. I like medium roast. I'm not going to narrow into like a specific location because I think there's pros and cons to a lot. And I also I tend to try different beans each time because it keeps it fresh, I guess. I don't know. But I love pour overs, but I'll be honest, I also am fine with like drip coffee and all of that. I think again, just the process of checking myself out a little bit to go make it is that's already 80% of it for me. And if the final 20% is making it a very specific way, great. But I've already sort of achieved what I wanted by the act of making it to begin with.
I love it. It's such like a healthy thing to do. To like, I mean, I wear an Apple Watch, and it's like I need the reminders when it tells me to get up. But I love how like you use coffee as that, and it's like a very enjoyable moment. That's like a whole vibe instead of just like a technology thing being like reminder. That's awesome. Well, thank you everyone for joining us, and thank you so much for being here, Gina. We had such a good time. I think everyone did really enjoy hearing from you, and also the zero interruption. There's some I saw a lot of hearts in the channel or in the chat. So thank you so much for joining us. And everyone, please, if you want to stay connected with Gina, please make sure to follow her. You can follow her, or if you want to shout out your, hold on, I got it. Gina Leigh Smith. And you can also check out her channel that we talked about, Short One Gaming, on YouTube and Twitch. We will post that in the YouTube description, so you can click on those links later. And then for us, Nochi, if you haven't followed us, please check us out at Nochi Studios on Twitter, X, whatever it's called now. Our Sweetcore Brews pre-order store is still up, so you can also find that in our links. So we will still have that up until the game has launched, and take advantage of it because there is a discount right now for either the mobile copy or the PC copy. And if you haven't checked out our pro titles, we also launched Untold Atlas on Steam. So that was our first Steam title, and that is also out. So please check that out if you haven't yet. If you're still waiting for Sweetcore, depending on how long this delay is, but hopefully, again, it's not too long. But yes, thank you everyone for joining us. And again, thank you so much, Gina. And we hope everyone has a good night.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. This is wonderful. Have a great night,
Thank
everyone.
you. Bye.